All right, I know you're all impatient to hear about engineering. So, with that, let's do this. Welcome in, everybody. My name is Letiredd, content curator over on Twitch. I mainly stream Star Citizen, and this week we are going to be talking about inside Star Citizen engineering in Alpha 4.0. So far, all we've seen is a test in the Arena Commander. I personally have not given it a try. Kind of wish I had. But let's learn some more about it today in ISC. And this is kind of an anticipated one, I think. We don't know too much about what's going to happen with engineering or what they discovered from testing it in Arena Commander. So that'll be interesting to maybe hear some more about that. And alrighty, let's do this. Everybody ready for this?
Engineering, the next major step forward in multi-crew gameplay. Built on top of the in-development resource networking system, itself a harbinger of fire and a new reality for all life aboard spacecraft. It's been the subject of CitizenCon presentations, Q&As on Star Citizen Live, explorations on Inside Star Citizen, and fervent discussion by many of the content creators in our community. And on this final episode of ISC before hiatus and we turn all of our attentions towards CitizenCon, we invited Torsten, Bastian, and Guillermo to update us once again on the current intention and implementation of engineering. And
so this is interesting. I'm glad we're getting to hear a little bit more about it. I'm very curious mainly to find out what kind of changes is this going to mean for us in terms of multi-crew, mainly because that's really what it's going to affect, but also what are we going to be able to get away with solo? And I think that's the bigger question for me is how big of an impact is this really going to have on a solo? Because I know they had said, you know, we're not going to make it so that you have to have a crew every time you go out, but it would be preferred. So I'm interested to see what that actually means.
what you can expect when the first iteration makes its way into the persistent universe.
The resource network enables us to actually give you the gameplay that you were always looking for, which is having meaningful multi-crew gameplay, which means that it really makes sense to have multiple people running around on your ship, and that wouldn't be possible without the resource network.
So we say the resource network is a system that allows all the items and components that are part of the ship to talk to each other.
Every ground vehicle, every base, everything that...
What was that? Does anybody know what this is? I fucked up. There we go. Hey, look. What's this? Oh, is this another pulse? Okay, just a different angle. I didn't recognize it. Okay, never mind. Moving on.
Every base, everything that runs in Star Citizen with resources.
Fundamentally, Resource Network is a replacement for the pipe system we had in the past that you may have heard about.
We chose a similar system, basically doing most of what we're doing right now with the resource network, but in a way that was not as scalable as what we intend to do.
Landing complete.
So right now we just have one type of hydrogen fuel, but if we want to extend that in the future to having like multiple types that have some specific benefits on the thrusters, it's very easy now to add that resource. It's just a data setup.
So resource network is the underlying technology for the system to work.
That's what I'm curious about, Hudson, because that didn't really look like any pulse that I remember. Although I wasn't really into the pulse, but that one looked different. This so far looks interesting. You know, I love the claim at the beginning, like, this is what people have been wanting this whole time. Like, that's a bold statement. That is a very bold statement. I'm not convinced, but we'll see.
And engineering is the gameplay we intend to have on top of this technology so that players may experience it.
Your ship flies because, you know, the thrusters get fuel, the power plants output power that the weapons and the sails and also the thrusters use. Engineering is all about both maximizing the use you get out of the resource network and also getting the resource network itself going so that you're not dead in the water.
It's all things that players will be able to interact with. They will have to dedicate roles in their ships so that crew members are assigned to fixing those issues, and they can...
Yeah, we're totally going to take the time to, you know, point and then the other person salute. Yes, totally. Although NPCs, maybe. That could be cool when the NPCs become a thing in the game, but or NPC crew, but I really hope this only truly applies to the bigger ships, which would make a lot of sense that they are completely multi-crew oriented. I mean, a Hammerhead, a Carrack, an 890, those type of ships I feel like should be heavily impacted by engineering. I really am hoping that the smaller, medium to smaller ships are not so much.
And encounter more dynamic situations that will not happen in the previous systems.
The goal right now is to have all the components on the ship being physicalized. That means that the things that will take damage will be the components. That then means that those components are reasons to the failure of your ship.
We have the power plants, which generate the energy that your ship consumes. You have the shield generators, which take in some of that energy to convert it to shield power. You have a radar system that allows you to target the signatures of ships around you. You have coolers that generate a coolant resource.
It is all the weapons that you have, it's the quantum drive, but there are also new components that will be added to the mix, and that is the relay with its fuses. Then there.
Okay, those I'm curious about because how much are they going to play a role? I feel like those are going to be the things that blow all the time and you're going to be constantly replacing them. I'm hoping, though, that that's something that we'll be able to craft ourselves, craft relays, either on the Vulture or the Reclaimer, or maybe have just a craftable crafting station. Like, for example, the Carrack is supposed to have a crafting room. When can we have that? Because if you can craft your own relays and things that you need on the go to fix, that would be a giant plus.
There's the life support generator. The biggest thing we are aiming for is switching from your health pool of the bespoke ship to just moving that completely over to the physicalized component. So damaging the component is damaging your ship. I think this is the part where the biggest change for the players happen, because there the gameplay of repair comes in, and then you can revitalize your ship.
Okay, so I don't know if all of you were aware, but there was talk about there being no more soft death. I think this is what's replacing it, and that would make sense, is your soft death is now your components taking all the damage first and dying, and then after that you can blow up somebody's ship, I'm assuming.
So you can actually use your formerly dead in the water ship after exchanging or repairing the components. So we mentioned one of the new components, which is the life support generator. So let's talk about life support.
The life support does all the tasks necessary to maintain the life support inside the ship.
So it's the temperature, it's the atmosphere composition, it's the pressure inside the room. Your main responsibility is making sure that there is always enough life support resource produced to maintain a healthy atmosphere in the ship. So making sure that all the CO2 that you breathe out is...
That is going to be the new preferred method for getting rid of any uninvited guests on your ship. Oh, we got people on board? Let's just get rid of Atmo. Yeah, let's just get rid of all the oxygen. Just turn that down. Hopefully they had a helmet.
It's actually converted into O2 again. Or if you vented a room, that the room is filled again. If your room is getting too hot, it's cooled down again. So it's all about managing this resource inside the rooms. And as already mentioned in the previous episodes, it's life support management is also a good way to counter fire. Another aspect the players have to counter or react to is misfires on components.
Misfires are something that is already in the game in some form. Thruster charges, seal generator failure, stuff like that. We're just expanding it a bit. And pretty much the idea is that, items that are damaged, that are too hot, or that, for example, are very old and degraded, will start misfiring. In some cases, that will be that it will take some extra damage. In other cases, they will stop working for a while. Other times, they will work indefinitely until an engineer comes by and manages to do some repairs. And some of the worst cases would be starting a fire, or in the case of, for example, power plants, engaging in a critical reactor failure and taking the ship with them.
There is a chance that if the power plant reaches zero health, it will run into a critical failure, and that critical failure then will cause the entire ship to explode. It will give the player the time frame to react to that, so either by removing the component and throwing it out of the door and preventing your ship to explode, or even countering it by repairing the component and bringing it up to life again.
See, what I potentially really like about this is hopefully it can remove some of the necessity to constantly need to go back to a station or an outpost for repairs. If you can do it on the go, then I feel like it adds to the gameplay and the flow of the game. If it's something that is just kind of patched over what we have right now, and we're constantly having to go buy these components, we can't make them ourselves, we can't really repair them, assuming all this works, maybe we can. What's the state that they are no longer repairable? I don't know. This is opening up more questions than it's answering.
For the initial release, we have a limited amount of misfires, but we are preparing the system, or we did prepare the system to scale well for the future, so we can introduce multiple misfires, and that leads us to damage penetration.
So damage penetration is a simplified version of what we'll be getting eventually with a more physicalized system, but essentially what it means is that now certain types of weapons can penetrate through the hull of a ship. This is a function of the weapon itself, its penetration values, and also of the armor of the ship, which can be depleted over time.
So if you use ballistics, you have a higher penetration, which allows you to cut through the armor more deeply and touch the components inside the ship directly. As opposed to this, you also have energy weapons, which will be more effective at melting down the armor.
The goal here is that you first need to bring down the armor health value to get to the fullest potential of your penetrating weapons. Then you can penetrate the ship and actually damage the components that sit inside the ship and not on the outside of the hull.
Obviously, there's degrees to this. Larger ballistic weapons may have enough penetration against smaller ships that it will be able to penetrate directly, but it's all of a game of choices, and it's going to depend on your ships and your weapons.
So
the biggest question is, will you be able to shoot somebody standing inside the ship with an Inferno? I think we're going to have to put that to the test when it comes out.
with damage penetration and misfires happening, that brings us to repair.
As your fight progresses and components take damage in your ship, it becomes the duty of some of your crew members to first investigate what are the issues caused by battle damage and go there to physically replace the parts in your ship.
So you have your multi-tool, so you have the salvage and repair, and the repair part of it also affects now ship components, precisely like what you see in the Arena Commando mode. You will be able to repair items that were fully destroyed. You will not be able to repair the item to its fullest, so you cannot repair an item that got fully destroyed to 100% health again. So to repair your ship components to the fullest, you actually have to bring them to the shop again and do the station repair.
Okay, so that answers some questions, and that's nice. We will be able to repair from fully destroyed. That's cool. And I think the takeaway is you can't repair to pristine, to use a DayZ term. But that's encouraging. The armor stat, I'm curious about what that's going to be. Are they going to differentiate types of armor? What's that going to do to shields? Yeah, very curious, but I think it's interesting that the components inside now are going to take a lot of that damage when you're getting hit, which, okay. Now, I'm really curious if they're going to show us where we actually go to finalize the repairs, or is that just something you do through your Moby class?
Or if you did think ahead and brought spare items with you, you can simply exchange them to pristine new ones. But with the caveat, it only works, just as a reminder, for size 1 and size 2 components. Size 3 and above cannot be exchanged using the tractor beam detach and attach mode. So now that we looked at what your responsibilities are in the physical space running around in your ship, let's take a look at what you do on the virtual part, which is power management and analysis of your ship on the engineering screen. So the first thing that you will see is the 3D view of your ship that highlights the location of all the ship components and how they are actually connected, where the relay positions are, what's the status of the relays are. You will see the holograms of each component.
As you can see, they have different colors. What they are representing is the overall state of the item. So an item that is very damaged, or it's on fire, or it's not getting enough power will be in a critical state. Items that are less damaged, are receiving only partial resources, or are going through a misfire, may have moderate colors. And items that are otherwise fine will have the functional or blue colors.
The biggest change that happened to the engineering UI screen is basically the power management part of it. We moved away completely from slider control for every individual item. There is indicator now for fuel. This is not relevant for the initial release, but it will be relevant for the future. Next to it, you see the power plant. The power plant segments gives you an idea of how many power segments you can distribute to the ship items.
And on the right of each of the power bars, you can generally see the temperature bar. If it goes into overheating, the item will stop both consuming or producing, and it will be completely inoperable until it cools down again. So that means that assigning power to your coolers in advance is probably a good idea if you are going into a fight.
All the items on your ship generate heat, so this is where you can see the amount of heat that each item has accumulated, and you can see the amount of coolant that you are producing and whether or not you are also running a deficit. So what you want to do is put as much power as you can into the coolers until your items do not overheat, but do not assign more resources than necessary because you are running a limited pool of resources.
The same.
Okay, yeah, that's the thing I'm worried about while I look at this, is how limited is our pool of resources. Like, this doesn't look like we have a ton to distribute, and it looks like the coolers take quite a lot, which is probably going to get relatively frustrating if I'm being honest. So hopefully they're not too hardcore with the first iteration when we get it. That might be rough.
Applies to the life support generators. So you have to make sure that you produce enough life support resource that the demand is fulfilled in your ship. If your demand isn't fulfilled, it will cause some failures.
There's also a notifications panel. Here the main warnings about the state of the ship will be displayed. If an item is damaged, doesn't get enough power, or is misfiring, it will create a warning. You will be able to see it as a notification. Take a look at it, go to the item, or just remove it.
So you have an option that allows you to basically log the controls so that you or the pilot, which has access to the MFD, which shares some of the power management functionality, do not conflict with your controls. So by locking this, you are able to override the MFD settings to only have it being authoritative from the engineering station.
You are able to take the power assignment you have at a given time and save it locally on your computer, meaning that when you fly again with the ship, or even if it's not your ship but somebody else's ship, you can quickly apply your presets. This is very useful in the middle of combat. And you can quickly switch to a combat preset where you will give, for example, more power to shields, weapons, and thrusters. Or at the same time, you may want to have some nap mode preset where you reduce the power to everything and just put it on the bare minimum so there's no degradation or misfires related to power use.
So you can set a preset on your ship and then jump on somebody else's ship and load it up?
Indeed. Your presets are stored locally, so as long as you have access to the...
That's kind of cool. I'm wondering how that'll apply to if that'll carry over to different types of ships or if it's the same ship. Maybe they just say right now.
Screen and you're using the same ship, you can apply a preset. Obviously, if the components have changed or the ship has a different loadout, the preset might not apply perfectly and you might need to adjust it, but it gives you a quick baseline on how your power is assigned.
We hope that with these changes, players will have more varied opportunities to experience the game. We'll encounter more situations where it feels relevant and enjoyable to have multi-crew gameplay in the ships, so that you do not think it's just about filling in the battle positions, like the turrets and the pilot seats, but it's more involved gameplay to actually manage your ships and try to fix the ongoing situations that occur within them. And we also hope that this makes larger vehicles which have more interior space both more troublesome but also more enjoyable to play with.
We are still working hard to get it done for all of you. There are ships that already have the functionality. There are still ships that we are working on. But overall, we are super excited to finally get it into the PU. So the Arena Command Experimental Mode was already fun to observe what you can do with the entire system. And now with having the feedback from that, adjusting the gameplay a little from the feedback that we received from you, I am really looking forward to see what you all will be doing with it.
Again, I really hope this mainly applies to larger ships, and if those are the ones they focused on, I think that's smart. I hope they didn't do it, focus on like the Gladius, the Arrow, like that. No, just big ships, multi-crew.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that there's a sweet new interface for dedicated engineering.
Okay, let's just mention a shaved Jared is unsettling the first time you see it. I don't know if I'm the only one that feels like this, but I miss the beard.
Terminals aboard spacecraft. That the first implementation of armor and damage penetration means that the ways that you kill and keep your spaceships alive will fundamentally change. And that when this arrives in the PU, life aboard spaceships will never be the same again. Now, that's it for this season of Inside Star Citizen, while everybody here turns their focus towards the upcoming CitizenCon, where we'll be showcasing the future of Star Citizen beyond Alpha 4.0. Yes, it's a show you're not going to want to miss. So from the small team that makes every ISC, thank you so much for letting us stretch our proverbial wings this year. Thank you for continuing to let us share the people and process of game development with you, and we'll see you all back here after the big show. Wow, I can't believe we got to...
Was there supposed to be a joke there? There's more coming. What's this? Oh, they're finishing up the Doctor Who thing. Okay. Or is this just everything we've seen? Okay, so what did we learn this week? Well, that we're not going to get anything until after SitCon, which, okay. So now begins the drought before SitCon. What do we think about engineering? Well, I think personally that it looks pretty interesting. That it has potential, but the problem it really is going to be how they implement it, how punitive they are with the resource management. Is it going to be like a huge time suck, basically? I don't know. I hope not. I hope it's not going to be a huge time suck. I hope it's not going to be like making some serious choices of like, shit, do I put stuff into shields or do I put some stuff into weapons, or do I try to have a balance and I'm no good at anything? I hope that there's a bit more flexibility there and it's not super hardcore right off the bat. I think they need to start with something friendlier to us and then dial it in, is my hope. Not, Maybe not something as hardcore of a change as like molasses modes. With that being said, I'm now worried about single player experience. And I think the reality that we have to kind of accept is a lot of what we've seen in the game recently has been going towards definitely more group play, org play, stuff like that. And that's great. That'll be something fantastic to go through, but you really need to keep the door open for people who just want to jump in and do some stuff by themselves. Like, it doesn't seem that, well, actually, no, because now it looks like even cargo haulers are going to need to have at least one person with them to kind of maintain and manage stuff. Depending on, and here's the real question, is how easy is it going to be able to do solo with the new MFDs while you're sitting in the pilot seat? I'm curious to see what they kind of come up with there. All in all, interesting stuff. I think, yeah, it will change the way we see the game. And yeah, solo play, I hope, doesn't get completely shut down. I don't think so. I think because they understand that they need to now kind of hit a bit more of a general public, and there's a bigger art market out there for them than just being a niche game that made $1 billion, or that's raised $1 billion almost. They have to take into account the people who don't like playing with other players. People who, even though they play a lot with orgs, they sometimes want to jump on and just kind of play and do their own thing. People who just don't want to have to deal with, making sure they have buddies online, making sure, because who wants to potentially, it could be fun. It might be funny to bring in a bunch of randoms into your ship, and you could have some great experiences, but you could also have a lot of grief. Like, you're in the pilot seat, you brought in a random to help you engineer your ship. He's like, yeah, I got you. He immediately realizes you don't have a helmet on, and he turns off life support. It's just for one example. The real question I have now after this is, what are we going to be seeing at Pyro? What are we going to be seeing at SitCon? He just basically said that they're not focusing on Pyro. Finally, we're going to be seeing everything that comes after that. But the real question with that is, when do we see Pyro in game? We already know there's a 324.2 we have to see. And I'm now starting to believe that they are kind of just going to ignore Pyro during SitCon. And it won't be released to us. Maybe at best, Evo Kadi's testing it. And that'll be their dodge of, don't worry about Pyro. See, Evo's testing it. It's almost in your hands. And I feel like that's what they said last year. I just really hope we get a little bit more than 324.2 before SitCon. And now that I think about it, I really hope that 324.2 isn't the SitCon patch, or the patch to come out right before SitCon to tide us over with some new things while they get their, stuff in a row for 4.0. But yeah, so my main concerns now and my main focus is, kind of switching over to like, okay, CitizenCon, like, we know we're going to get some big Squadron 42 announcement, maybe a release date. The part of me that is pure hopium hopes that they'll just be like, the final speech on the second day will be Chris Roberts saying some crazy stuff about some weird things coming into the game down the line. And then he'll turn to the crowd and go, by the way, y'all can download Squadron 42 now. Drops the mic, walks off stage. That would be the most badass baller thing he could do. I highly doubt that's going to happen. I have just so many questions for SitCon this year. Yeah. No, now I'm just really worried about I'm not worried about what we're going to see at SitCon, because I think we'll see a bunch of cool stuff. They'll probably show us more about the systems that they have in Squadron 42 and how those are going to come over to the verse. And we're probably going to see Nyx and Odin. Maybe we'll get some glimpses of Magnus and stuff like that. I'm not expecting anything crazy. I'm not expecting some insane announcement. I think we'll see a bit more of the evolution of base building. There's been talk of that. I don't know if there are, and now the question is, are they going to actually talk about the next system after Pyro? For me, the most logical thing would be for them to release all the systems that are in Squadron 42 into the verse. And it would be best if they released them all in one go, because then it would actually feel like we made a jump forward. And I think that's something to note, and that's really important now, is we need to feel like we're making progress. And at least right now with the state of the patch, 324.1 is, I'm not going to say unplayable, because that's not true, but I am not having any fun. I am not having that much fun in the game. I cannot complete stuff. I cannot sell things. I have just been bleeding money in the verse, and it's become a chore. And I really hope that's not how it stays, because it's a better game than that. I haven't even bothered with Blockade Runner. Like, I'm going through a little bit of a, I might need a Star Citizen break phase. And I understand so many who have. No, you're not the only one whose stuff disappears. Hey, you guys want to know what message is back for me in game? My favorite message of all time. Unclaimed cargo awaiting transfer. It's back, everybody. So you have that to look forward to if I decide to jump into Star Citizen after Marvels, which we're going to go do right now. So for YouTubes, thank you very much for watching this react. If you liked it, please consider leaving a like and subscribe. That really does help us out and boost the channel. If you didn't, well, thank you for watching this long, and hopefully you like the next one. With that being said, all you Twitchers are going to stay here